Hi everyone, how's it going? It's Brandon here, and today we're gonna do a little bit of an interview with some of my fellow management engineering colleagues. And today we've got Markus here, one of my best buddies since first year, and we're just gonna hop right into it, nail out some questions. So these videos are relatively short and to the point. So first of all, I'm just gonna get Markus to introduce himself a bit and tell us a little bit about who he is and how he got to being in management engineering at the University of Waterloo.
Hey, so, hey everyone, my name is Markus Hamann, and I am a 22-year-old fourth year management engineering student at the University of Waterloo. I did my previous co-op at Tesla, and I'm doing my current co-op right now at Loblaws. I'm always someone who's kind of put more of an emphasis on being a well-rounded person and having a lot of balance in life, whether that's understanding the business case and the data pipeline required to get whatever customer data you need, or just spending your mornings at the gym and then your weekends making music. I've just been someone who's always found my happiness comes from having a good balance and being well-rounded and doing many different things.
Yeah, I think it's really important, especially when you get off to university. It's really easy to focus on the school part of things, and I think both you and I struggled with that at first. We played around a bit, we had our fun, and then when it came down to it, we thought we were gonna fail out, so we just dropped everything, focused on school, when really at the end of the day we found more success later on in our university career by balancing things out and spending a little bit more time on things we actually enjoy and less so on just grinding at the school every day. So how about your background as a child growing up? Where did you grow up? What things kind of led you to going to the University of Waterloo?
Yeah, so growing up, I was born and raised in Aurora, Ontario. So not a huge town, but pretty close to Toronto. You're in the GTA anyways, so a lot of action going on around you. But as a kid, my things that I was really into, and possibly too much, was sports. So I dreamed, everything to do with sports. I wanted to be a baseball player when I grew up. That was my sport of choice, and I did that all the way up until grade 12, except unfortunately the baseball career didn't work out, but thankfully I did always put a good emphasis on getting decent grades in school. So I was always definitely keeping different options open as I went through the years to potentially see what maybe I want to do for a career. One thing that I always thought I wanted to do in high school was a doctor. So I knew for that I really needed sky high grades. So I put a lot of focus in high school. I still played sports, but I still put a really big emphasis on grades and making sure that I had what I needed so I could get into whatever school that I wanted. But when it came down to it, I really didn't find that I had the passion maybe that a lot of doctors really had for that profession, and that I'd be better suited for maybe looking at something that maybe has a bit more balance to it. So maybe a bit more business, a bit more tech. And that's kind of where I landed with management engineering.
And was there any other programs you had thought about when you actually went to apply to university? Was there another program outside of engineering that you applied to?
I think I mainly applied just to different engineering programs. A lot of them though were the general first year, just because I wasn't 100% sure what type of engineering I wanted to do. I think that the general still to this day, like I definitely would think that'd be a good option, because I think any of them are pretty valuable as long as you can really make your degree work for you and find something that you like within that degree that you find valuable. I don't think that this was the only option for me in my life. Like I was destined to take this, but I think I probably could have had success at something else, but this so far has worked out as well.
And do you think if you could go back and if Waterloo had a general engineering program, do you think you would go back and choose that? Or now that you know you've kind of been through the engineering path and you know the value of picking a discipline from the start, would you rather pick a discipline or go general if you had the chance to make that decision again?
I think if Waterloo specifically had the option of doing like a general first year engineering, I actually would take that, just because I think there was other programs that I maybe saw value of after doing first year that I didn't see initially, just from the different courses that I was taking, from the different co-ops that I heard other people had in first year. So again, I'm still happy with my choice in management engineering, and that might have been still where I ended up. But I think I didn't have to get specialized enough in first year where it would have made an impact. Like I saw throughout my career in university, people switching all the way up to the second year into different engineering streams. So I think we didn't really take anything too specific where it could have really hampered us, maybe set us back a course or two, but nothing too detrimental. We're talking about like a life and career here.
Right. I totally agree with that. And do you remember what you thought university was going to be like when you were deciding to go to university and making that decision?
Yeah, playing frisbee in a big field, standing underneath a big clock tower or something like that. To be honest, I wasn't completely sure what engineering or university was going to hold for me. I thought it was going to be a lot of late nights, which I ended up being right about. But I knew it was going to be a difference in a change of pace, just because of I was moving to a different town, a different city. And that was really, I'd say, probably one of the biggest changes for me throughout university. I still worked as hard as I did, maybe harder than I did in high school, but I think the fact living by myself, living in a different city, those really changed my perception of what university was.
And leading, obviously through first year, you would have held that perception a little bit. Obviously, things change a lot when you actually get on campus. So how about to the end of first year, what was your impression on university then, and what was different?
Yeah, for me, at the end of first year, actually, I was kind of in the dumps with it. I was not a huge fan. First year was pretty rough. Like, I didn't really end up getting a co-op at the end of first year. My grades were about 30% lower than I was used to getting in high school. So I wasn't really feeling too hot about myself after that. But what I think I gained out of that experience was probably the most valuable thing I actually ended up getting out of university, of kind of picking myself up after that and then kind of learning, what did I do wrong? Like, how can I basically not have that happen again, and then start building some better habits, whether that be study habits, life habits, whatever. Just building those better habits to kind of make sure I'm always in a better scenario than where I was before. And I think that was huge for me.
Yeah, and obviously both you and I were struggling after our first semester at the University of Waterloo. We thought we were going to fail out. Do you remember what changed specifically between the first and second semester, and even between the first half of the second semester and after midterms? Because if you remember, at the time following midterms in your second term, 1B term at the University of Waterloo, things weren't looking so bright. So what were you thinking then, and what changed between then and the end?
Yeah, I think that time I think me and you both saw, when you're pulling in those 40s on some of your exams, you realize that you got to smarten up maybe, and that you don't really want this first year to go down the tube. So the one thing I think that changed was just the allocation of time, and really when it came down to it, I think our recipe for success was scheduling. It was basically putting it, like, it was not saying that you couldn't play anymore, you couldn't do sports, you couldn't do activities. It was just make sure that you're allotting the proper time for your activities, and that you're allocating the proper time for your studying as well. So yeah, you can go out and have fun on a Friday night or a Saturday night, but if you're doing that, you have to make sure you're studying then Monday to Friday, Saturday, and then probably also Sunday as well. So
yeah, I think that's the toughest part, is realizing, even if you're up to 4 a.m. on Saturday night or whatever, Sunday morning at least 10 a.m. you got to be up on the ball. It doesn't matter how you're feeling. So what are your thoughts now? Like, you've come a long way. We've gone nearly 5 years of undergrad at the University of Waterloo now. It's been a tough struggle and a journey of ups and downs all over the place throughout the co-ops and stuff. But what are your thoughts now before graduation about the program, about the school, about where you are, and kind of where you want to go?
I think I have two really big takeaways that I ended up getting out of my degree. First takeaway, and obviously the one that you pay for, is the knowledge that I gained out of it. I think I am truly a smarter person for going to university and taking this program. I think I have better logic and reasoning now towards things. I can think about the actual subject matter that I was taught a lot better than I could when I entered, obviously. And that trickles down and helps me out in work as well. So it opens up career paths, different doors and opportunities for that. So that's really probably the amazing part. But I think looking back on it now after 5 years of living away from home in a new town, a new city, and doing different co-ops, going to California, like doing things like that, I think meeting new people, having new experiences that I wouldn't have had otherwise, have really kind of shaped the person that I am today. And then without those, I don't think I would be who I am right now, which maybe that's for the better, maybe that's for the worse. I can't really be the one to decide that, but I definitely don't think things would be the same. And I kind of like the way things are. So I think I'm happy for what the experience was, and I would honestly recommend it to anyone.
Yeah, and out of all that, what's your absolute favorite experience or memory that you have over that period of time, whether it be school related, work related, or even fun related outside of school?
I think one thing that'll always stand out when I'm thinking about my time in university is just going to be the time that you spend on campus, the very nonchalant moments, the ones that aren't your whatever end of term celebrations, nothing like that. It's your day-to-day of going, hanging out with the people that you do your classes with, seeing your friends every day on campus. It is kind of a mundane routine, but if you can find friends in that and find some sort of light in what you're doing, I think that to me is ultimately the most memorable part. Just kind of feeling that university, that youthful, whatever go-getter vibe you want to say that you saw, just buzzing in the air. I think it's something that isn't really matched in anywhere else that you go. So to me, that's something that's always going to stand out. Just the buzz that you feel around a university. It's like nothing else.
And obviously now, given the state of the pandemic and the fact that everything's been online, not only for university but also for co-ops, do you have any advice or remedy for people that are just starting out in university, going through co-ops and doing everything online? Because obviously you're missing out on those mundane experiences of being in the classroom, being with friends, and actually getting that interaction. Do you have any advice for anyone going through that struggle?
Yeah, I think the best thing you can do right now is still stay connected to as many people as you can within your class, even though you're not seeing them in person. Still stay in touch virtually. I know it sucks. It's not the same thing that you're going to get living in residence, seeing your floor mates every day and going down to the cafeteria and running into people that you go to class with. But I think still staying in touch to some sort of a level, so when things do come back, you'll already basically have in a way, the ice broken, and then you just kind of accelerated the whole process, and then you can just take it from there.
And if you had to name one experience as being the most challenging, the time that you felt you were at your lowest point in university, how would you describe that, and what do you think that was, and how did you overcome it?
I think the most challenging point was just dealing with being extremely overwhelmed sometimes when you have basically 5 assignments due and 3 days to do them, and they're all going to take you 24 hours. I think that was probably the hardest part, is that, and basically just fighting through it, just learning that you might not actually get the best mark on everything. You're probably not going to kill everything you hand in. Some work might not be the most proud work you've ever done, but you just give it your best effort and you allocate your time the best you can. And if you've really done all those things, there's really not too much you can be upset about yourself with. The final product it'll speak for itself. Your grade will speak for itself. You'll know what you did wrong and what you did right. But I think it's just kind of accepting that if you schedule yourself the best you can schedule yourself, and you give it your best effort while you're doing it, the rest really just, it works itself out in the end, and there is no reason to really worry.
Honestly, I think that's great advice, and that's so true. And that was something that we realized, you can't always hand in perfection. You need to accept that sometimes you need to focus your effort elsewhere, and you do that with time. And I think that's great advice to give to your first year self. But do you have any other advice as a last question and as an end to this conversation? Any advice that you would give to your first year self that you either didn't know then, or maybe you did know but you just didn't apply it And if that's the case, what would you have done better so that you could apply it?
Yeah, I definitely actually got one big one for this. For me personally, I know some people did go another route with this, but I think I should have stuck harder with coding, seeing as that's really like a critical skill that you need. And almost it can, even if you don't need it in your role, it can supplement you in any career and be a huge asset to have. So I think unless you're a high level manager, I think you can always find a use for knowing a bit of code, and it's really just another language at this point that most people are speaking. So I'd say definitely for those first couple courses, they all compound on each other, and they all take what you got in the first one. So I'd say really pay attention to those first couple coding courses that you have, and maybe try a side project or two on the side as well, and try and really hammer down those skills in first year and second year. So when it comes to third year and fourth year, you can maybe flex them a little bit and use them for some projects to do some cool things.
I think that's great advice. Well, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for your time, Markus, and for coming on the show today. This will be airing on the news. I'm not going to say what news channel, but thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. No, thanks for having me, Brandon.